Well, tomorrow is Labab Duchen, not today. But it is the day, it is the day where we celebrate the return of the Buddha from being in the God realm where he taught his mother the Dharma. So out of a wish to repay her kindness in giving him his life. And she died 7 days after his birth. He was raised by his stepmother. He saw where she was and wanted to repay that kindness, and so he went to the God realm and taught her. After 3 months, he was petitioned to eagerly by his students, please come back. We need you. And so he did, and so it's his descent from the God realm that we celebrate. But I was thinking about that because our teacher has been on retreat for a week. And so to have, you can feel the excitement of the return and how important that is for the community of students to have that connection with the teacher. So in a way, this Labab Duchen has a little bit more meaning for me than normal, just because of this experience. I mean, it was not a long retreat, but it's really wonderful to welcome our teacher back. And so I've just been thinking about the importance and the value of the teacher and our responsibility as students. There's a quote in here that I could not find. I know it's in Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, where Pabanka Rinpoche gives many wonderful scriptural quotes and tells stories. I really love this book myself. But it's one of the Kadampa masters who talks about being a student, a teacher. And he says, when the students come, my burden grows. When the students leave, my burden lightens. And I think about that quote in context of our situation here sometimes, seeing that, well, as the students come, I can see that the burden grows. And I can see that the student, the behavior of the students is what seems to lighten the load. And so that led me to think again, well, what is it that makes us good students? How is it that we can really participate in being a Dharma community, working to cultivate our own minds, relying properly on the spiritual mentor without draining the spiritual mentor in a certain kind of way? So then I went back to the books to look at some of the quotes and things that we've been taught just about how to be a good student, and to think of that in terms of Labab Duchen and this week, right, as we enter this new course. So, of course, the quote that we've been reflecting on lately, actually, is the one from Aryadeva's 400 Verses, where it is said that one who is non-partisan, intelligent, and diligent is a vessel for listening to the teachings. The good qualities of the instructor do not appear otherwise, nor do those of the fellow listeners. So in other words, what J. Rinpoche is explaining here is, to some extent, it doesn't matter how good your teacher is. You can have the most pure teacher in the world, but if our minds are not in this state of being nonpartisan, being diligent, receptive, intelligent, if we don't put the teachings into practice, really, it's our view that's actually coloring what we get. And it's our participation or our practice or not that I think is that burden that the Kadampa master was speaking about, right? So, one thing that I remember from a recent teaching that Venerable Children said is that the way to please the teacher, because often they say, pleasing the teacher is the highest thing, that to please the teacher means to put into practice what we've been taught. And she also said in that teaching, the teacher's not going to tell you that either, that they're pleased or not pleased. That our job is to put the teachings into practice, to work with our relationships with one another, and to really think, why are we doing this? What is the motivation that has brought us to wish to study the Dharma? What is the motivation that we have for ourselves? Not what we're expecting to get from the outside. Not the kind of approval that we might want, not the kind of perfect environment or the best friends we might be seeking among the community, but to stay self-contained in relationship to our own aspiration to be open-minded, our own aspiration to be diligent, our own aspiration to practice what we've been taught and to apply it in terms of then creating an environment where we're open to teachings, where we're receptive, where we create the causes for other teachers to come, and not to take it for granted. I think that's the main point of my thinking this morning about Labab Duchen. It was wonderful that the Buddha's disciples were able to invite him back and he came. We didn't have the karma to be there at that moment that we know of. It's wonderful that our teacher has come back, and there will come a time when we're in a situation where that won't happen. So not to take for granted that it does, not to take for granted the situation that we have now, but to take the opportunity that we have to practice with those qualities and to really make use of it from our own side, like from our own, what's the word I want? Our own motivation is what I keep coming back to. Our own motivation is what's propelling us, not to be looking externally, but to let that be the force that makes us practice in that way, so that we are doing what pleases the teacher in enacting our practice. Well, that's my sort of Labab Duchen exhortation today.